Hi everybody, my name is Rob Kalick. I'm a member of the Jersey Coast Sport Flyers, and at Neat Fair I'm one of the killer rabbits. I've been flying night flyers for over 20 years now, and I wanted to share some techniques on how to build foam night flyers. Now, I started with balsa. Balsa flies great, but it's also fragile and can be a bit nervous to fly at night. I quickly moved over to EPP because EPP bounces. It's very resilient. And if I have a problem, I can usually fix it very quickly with some foam tack and a little patience. But one of the cool things about foam, above and beyond just the durability, is that when you add LEDs to foam, the foam glows and it looks fantastic. And I want to mention this real quick because this is one of my pet peeves is please don't just add LEDs on the outside of your airplane. Okay, unless they're facing inwards and illuminating the plane itself. The reason being is that these LEDs are very bright, and there's nothing worse than to be flying at night, have your night vision, you're flying a plane, and then one of your fellow pilots flies through your field of vision with a really bright airplane. Suddenly you're blind, you can't see your airplane anymore. It's just no fun. So please, this is my public service announcement, always embed your LEDs in your foam. So the nice thing about embedding the LEDs in the foam is not just having the glow, but durability. So when you cover your LEDs in the foam, you also protect the LEDs, and they're going to last a lot longer. I've had some of these, foamy night flyers for 4 or 5 years because they can take a beating. So I really suggest EPP as the way to go. So let's talk about lighting options with LEDs. Okay, nowadays, highly recommend using LED strips, similar to these. Basically, they are 12 volts, okay? And they'll work off a 3S battery if that's what you typically are flying, which is what I do at night. You could use discrete LEDs. That's what I used to do in the past, but it's a lot more work. You have to add dropping resistors, a lot more soldering, so I really don't suggest doing that. LED strips are the way to go. But when you buy your LED strips, make sure you buy non-waterproof LED strips. Waterproof LED strips have silicone on them, okay? That's how they stay waterproof. And what happens is it adds a lot of weight, adds a lot of complexity installing them. You can remove the silicone from the LED strips, but it's just easier to buy the right thing in the first place. So I mentioned 12 volts. Let's talk about powering, okay? When you look at your typical battery, you have a balance connector. That's 12 volts right there, okay? I recommend just making up a female balance connector to connect your LEDs to your battery. It's very clean, it's easy. And this way also too, if you want to fly a plane and not have the LEDs on, you don't have to plug it in. You just fly like a regular airplane. You also can use a brushed speed controller. Not brushless, brushed. If you put a brushed speed controller on your plane and you use it to support your LEDs, you can actually vary the brightness. You can put that brushed speed controller on a spare channel on your receiver, and you can actually vary the brightness during flight. Okay, which is really cool. If you're flying a plane with a higher cell count, 4S or up, you can use the balance connector piece, but honestly, the problem with that is you start, depending upon how many cells you have, how many LEDs you have, and how much current you're pulling, you start hitting some cells harder than others. So if you're going to actually go the higher cell count battery, I recommend using like a BEC or a battery eliminator circuit to provide 12 volts to your LEDs. It's just a lot cleaner. It's easier on your battery. So let's talk about lighting layout, okay? So when you look at this plane here, I'm going to pull this plane over here. This is Joel Durenberg's Bluefo. This is a RA Cores kit. I built a bunch of these. I find they work really, really well. When you power them up, I have top and bottom is unique, okay? And that's really, really important, okay? The reason being is that your brain can easily process top and bottom of an object quickly, okay? My first planes, I did left and right. and your brain doesn't work fast enough to be able to tell one color wing from the other color wing, and you lose orientation very quickly. So I recommend top and bottom, making it so much easier. The other thing I recommend is lighting up the rear of your airplane. As you'll notice, I have red lights in the back, okay? I call them my tail lights, okay? A lot of times when I'm flying at night, I'm flying away from myself, okay? And depending upon how your plane is lit, you can very easily lose sight of your plane because you'll get an angle where you can't see it. I started adding rear lights in my planes, so if I'm flying far down the flight line, I can always pick out the back of the airplane and be able to get a sense of where it is. So I recommend that as a good practice. Now, let's talk about actually installing these LEDs. Actually, I'm going to go back. I'm going to leave this here. So what you want to first think about is power. Okay, it's not necessarily where the LEDs are going to go, but where are you going to get your power from? Because what I recommend is you want to use your LED strips to supply power to any other LED strips in your plane. The reason being is that you don't want to have a lot of extra wire. You don't want to have every LED strip go back to the battery. You're adding a lot of extra wire, adding a lot of extra weight, and it doesn't look very good, to be honest. It looks kind of messy, okay? If I go back over here again and I show you, you'll see how there are some short pieces of wire that are connecting things in the airplane, okay? We'll show a little more details later on. And what's happening is we're using the leading edge LEDs to provide power, okay? So this is a Bluefo XL I'm building, okay? And these are the main power strips, main power connectors that will go to the battery. And then I have taps that are on here. I'll show you in a few minutes, but when you look at the LED strips, every 3 LEDs, there's a set of solder pads, okay? Positive, negative. And you can use that to add wire there to give jump offs to provide power, okay? And that's really important. And you need to think about this before you actually do your installation, because if you could avoid soldering while you have the strip on the foam, you're better off, because the foam could melt a little bit. But I have that all throughout here. So you'll see I have my fins have the pickups, the leading edges of the pickups, and this way you have the ability to route power to where you want it to go much easier. I don't recommend, again, running leads all over the plane. It might sound simpler, but it adds a lot of weight, and weight is not your friend, okay? You also want it to look nice, okay? So that's very important. So let's talk about the actual installation. So let's talk about single-sided LED strips. What I recommend doing is you want to, if for a typical flat foamy, you want to take and illuminate the leading edges, okay? It's amazing how much easier it is to see a plane at night when it's well illuminated than even during the day, because it really stands out if you lay out your LEDs properly. What I do is I cut off anywhere from a 1/4 to a 3/8 inch strip on the outside of the surface. And I'm going to demo that in a few minutes. I cut that off and I'm going to embed the LED. I want the LED strip facing outwards, okay? So what I do is after I remove that outer strip, the LEDs actually have a adhesive backing on them, but it's not strong enough to stick the EPP by itself. So what I do is I wipe the surface with some foam tack, I let it set, and then I lay the LEDs down. On the piece I cut off, I recommend that you take your straight edge and you cut a little groove in it. And the reason you do this is you're giving yourself clearance over the LEDs. Now, you don't have to do it that way. You can just glue the strip back on again, but I find it's a lot cleaner. It's worth a few extra minutes to have that set up. So once you cut your groove, you lay some foam tack over the LEDs, you lay your strip over the top of it, you pull it off, and you wait maybe 15 seconds because foam tack wants to set a little bit. Then you lay your strip back on again, you tack it down, make sure it's really good, and you let it dry. And you'll find that you have a really strong joint that can take a lot of abuse. I mean, this thing, you know, I've banged up a lot of these things over the years, and it's amazing how strong this connection stays. So I really like this technique. It works really, really well. Now, once you get more familiar with doing that, you can get a little fancier. So I'm going to bring this plane out again real fast. And you can do two-sided installations. So when you do two-sided installations like this, you'll see on this plane that the outside is one color and the inside is another. In this case, orange and white. Okay? And what you end up doing in this case is you take a pair of LED strips and you're gluing them back to back. Okay? Very important point with this is that when you do that, you want to make sure that the polarity is correct. And what I mean by that is these LED strips, one side's positive, one side's negative. Okay? When you glue them together, you want to make sure the negatives are on one side and the positives are on the other. Because if you look carefully here, I'm trying to see where I have it on this particular plane. There are jumpers. You can't see it in this here. I buried it. But there are jumpers that go from one side to the other to actually provide power from one side of the strip to the other. So you want to make sure that they line up properly. So that's one thing. You're going to cut your strip off, like I mentioned, 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch, and you're going to groove both sides. I really recommend grooving it because it just makes everything lay better, okay? You're going to lay a bead of foam tack down on the inside surface. You're going to lay your LED strip. You're going to do the pull, wait 15 seconds, put it back down again piece. Now this is really important. You need to make sure you know what color you want facing in versus facing out. I actually write on my LED strips what color is what on each side. Because say you want to do white on the outside and red on the inside. Well, once they're glued in, if you've got it one the wrong way, you're not going to be able to change it. So you want to make sure that you have the right side facing inward when you do that, okay? So you want to write that with an indelible marker on the actual LED strip. So you put the first strip in and you let it dry. It takes 15-20 minutes. Once it's done, then you're going to lay another bead of foam tack over all the LEDs. You're going to lay your foam down. You're going to pull it off, wait 15 seconds, put it back. Make sure it's really tight and let it dry, okay? Once you let it dry, then you have a really tough surface that's not going to give you a hard time. The glue on the LEDs will keep the LEDs together, and then you can proceed with your build. So we're going to pause here a moment. We're going to do a little up-close demo of how you actually embed the LEDs, and we'll go from there. Okay, everybody, so let's get into some actual technique. So as I mentioned previously, we had embedded the LEDs in these strips. I'm not going to be doing any soldering, but to give you an idea what's going on here, you can see how we added the leads to the front of the LED strip. And if you look at the LED strip itself, let's see if I can get this in focus here, you'll see that there are pads every 3 LEDs. 1, 2, 3, a set of LEDs, and then the pads. You're going to be soldering to these, okay? So that's important. That's part of your upfront setup. What we're going to do is I'm going to simulate actually adding LEDs to the front leading edge of the Bluefo, like I did over here on the XL, okay? Now, I like to freehand with a straight edge blade. Again, you can use number 11 if you'd like to. But what I do is I basically put my finger as a spacer. I put it on the outer edge, and then I just draw, and I use my finger as a guide to cut off, again, about a 3/8 inch piece off. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You can see it's not exactly perfect, but it's close enough, okay? And now we have the outer edge of the wing and the inner edge of the wing. And so what I'd like to do is we're going to take in some foam tack. We're going to put some foam tack on here. Just going to put in a little section here. Cap it off so it doesn't make a mess. I'm going to smear it just so that the LED strip has something to bite into. Okay? That's really important. We're going to let that sit. Okay? Now, this is the piece we just cut off. This is the outside edge of your surface, whether it be the outside of the delta or one of the leading edges or one of the fins. I'm going to take the straight edge again. I'm just going to do is I'm going to cut a little groove. I'm going to cut it first one side. Just pull it down. Nice sharp single edge blade. does wonders when you're doing this. I'm just going to pull the way down to the end. Just take my time. I'm going to go a little further. And then I'm going to do is I'm going to flip around the other side. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm just going to take from the top, I'm going to cut this groove. And I'm going to keep on going to the end. It doesn't take a lot of effort. It's not hard. It doesn't have to be precise. But the key thing is that this gives the LEDs a spot to sit. Okay. Otherwise, if you just glues back on again, the LEDs are going to be just underneath and squashed. So you pull this out, and now you see you have a nice little groove. Okay. So I'm going to put that on the side for a moment. I'm going to grab some of my LEDs. These are red. As you can tell, I've got quite a collection of LEDs, so they're fun to collect. Different colors are great. I'm going to take and pull off a section. And what you do is you cut where the solder pads are. So I'm just going to cut right in the middle. Boom. Okay. Normally I would measure, but this is just for a demo. I'm going to take now and get off the backing. The backing can be a little bit, require some persuasion. This one's actually pretty easy. I'm pulling off the protective backing, and then I lay it on the surface. And I want to center it. As you can see, with the foam tack, it now lays down very nicely. I can feel it grabbing, and good. So if I had soldered on the leads, there would be a pigtail here and a pigtail there. I could have had, as I mentioned before, I could have had a jumper off to supply power to another piece in the plane. But we're just going to go through the basic techniques right now. So, but you can see where you would be adding your jumpers. Okay. As you can tell, everything sticks down nicely. The LEDs are proud from the surface. So what I'm trying to do now is with this groove, the groove goes right over the LEDs. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take some more foam tack and I'm going to lay out a nice bead. The foam tack won't bother the electronics, won't bother the resistors, the LEDs. You just want to put it down there nicely. I'm just going to go to the end because why not? And now I'm going to take this piece that I cut off and I grooved. I'm going to line it up. I'm going to lay it on there. Everything nicely matches up. Now I'm going to pull it off. You see how it's stringing? Now we're going to give this a few seconds to set up, okay? Because now the foam tack's going to get a little tacky. I'm going to wait about 10 seconds or so. But this will give a lot more strength when we're done. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back, place exactly where I want it, start laying it on, start pushing it down. And now we have our LEDs nicely embedded, okay? So, and you can see, you can barely see where the LED strip is. It's protected now by the foam, okay? So if I go over here, I'm going to put this on the side for a minute, and I pull up our leading edge again, this is basically what you end up with. This is a much longer piece, obviously. This is the Bluefo XL, which I love flying this plane. It's much, I love the regular Bluefo, but the Bluefo XL is very majestic to see fly, and it's great high alpha. So what I'm going to do now is just give you an idea, you know, of what we would see if we lit up that surface. I'm just going to take, I got a 12-volt battery. I got my 3S. I'm going to connect, and you'll see how this lights up so nicely, how the foam just glows, okay? So by doing what we did with this and seeing how it plays out, you can see how it's a very easy technique and that you could apply it anywhere you want to in the airplane. So if you folks have any questions or anything, just leave comments in the video. I'll be happy to try and give you some feedback, but I think this is a great way of doing things. I think the planes look wonderful in the air. They're durable, they're easy to see. EPP is your friend. There's a lot of different plans on RC Groups, or you can go through like RA Cores and get one of theirs. West Michigan Park Flyers has kits. There are different ones out there. I've been flying blue foes for years. I rarely build one plane more than once, and I've built at least 4 or more blue foes because they fly so nice, and they're perfect for night flying. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found this helpful. And again, any questions, leave me a message in the comments. I'll do my best to get back to you. Thank you.
Yep. Yep.
Hey guys.
Oh, that's pretty, Rob.
Thank you.
Nice to see it doesn't fly like a wing.
No. It flies really nice.
Jason let me fly his wing. As soon as I slowed it down to take a corner, like freaking nose down.
Which wing?
I don't know which wing. I was like,
Assassin?
holy crap.
Was it shaped like a, or was it painted like a brick, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He let me fly it because he knew I like to fly fast enough. And I slowed it down to take a turn, and it's like nosedive right towards the ground. Like, holy crap.
Can you hover that, Rob?
That's best I can do right there.
That's cool.
How's this working for you so far?
Perfect.